How come no arrest has been made? I expect there should be arrests of those criminals. Christopher, thank you very much. I watch your comments and I know you can't be tired of staying in the bush and Oloyede and Basha. Thank all of you. But we need to keep our ears to the ground. Let's get those criminals. Let's get them out. So DGNIA and DGSSS, read through your information channels and let's have tangible intelligence that this will not occur again. Thank you very much. Thank you.
We do have grave concern about the misinformation and misrepresentation of the security crisis in Benue State. Your Excellencies, it is not herder farmers clashes, it's not communal clashes, it's not repressor attacks or skirmishes. It is this misinformation that has led to suggestions such as remain tolerant, negotiate for peace, learn to live with your neighbors. What we are dealing with here in Benue is a calculated, well-planned, full-scale genocidal invasion and land-grabbing campaign by herder terrorists and bandits, which has been on for decades and is worsening every year. Wrong diagnosis will always lead to wrong treatment. So we are dealing with something far more sinister than we think about. It's not learning to live with your neighbors. It is dealing with a war.
Alright guys, I believe you've watched the video of the section where our president was addressing the nation when he visited Benue, and then he was asking why have there not been any arrests, and then people were clapping. I don't know why they were clapping, by the way. But now, like guys, take a listen and hear how Dele Farotimi dissected this issue. Like he said that Dele Farotimi said that Tinubu shouldn't have or should have not visited Benue State, because what happened in Benue State is a proof that this government don't care about the life of Nigerians. Take a listen at Dele Farotimi in a minute.
To begin examining the state of our nation, I think the natural place that is fair to start from is what's playing out in Benue. I don't know whether you have been able to binge through the remarks of everybody who spoke there, from the governor, the president, and the totive, but those are just excerpts. And if you listen through, the president did a lot of political housekeeping, but while the totive took another dimension to say, well, I know there's a political dimension to it, but this is more of a genocidal invasion. And one of the things he said, which is my question to you, how you characterize that statement of the totive. The totive says, if we wrongly diagnose, we're not going to get the right treatment. Mr. Farotimi.
Well, because I knew I was going to be coming on your program, I was compelled to listen to watch the video from Benue. So I was compelled to listen to the president. I listened to the governor, and I heard the compelling words of the totive. And I must say very quickly that it would have been better if the president didn't go. The only thing worthy of anybody's time are the words of the Tortee, who spoke extensively to the reality of the situation in the Benue Trough and spoke eloquently to the pains of the victims. Other than that, all the president had to offer were mere windows into his own preoccupation and what truly concerns his aides and assistants. In 2018, February, when Buhari went to Dapchi, you would recall that they ensured that they went with the red carpet so that when he came out of his limousine in Dapchi, he could step onto a red carpet. In Benue, they knew exactly what was of importance to the president, so they ensured that they put out the necessary theater in preparation for 2027. The death of over 200 people did not count for anything much. They were mentioned probably only in passing. You would have been excused for thinking that it was a political event, and the president did make it sound as if the problem was a political one that should be resolved politically, even though I thank the Tortee for ensuring that in spite of the comical clapping that revealed a Kafkaesque dystopian reality in our society, where in spite of the fact that over 200 persons have just been brutally murdered and burnt in their homes, persons could still find the idiocy to be clapping over everything and anything, almost in a manner that even challenges one's sanity. But that's where we find ourselves, unfortunately.
All right. So one of the things you said yesterday, and before leaving the issue of Benue, and let me also ask you in terms of solution, because what we expect is that no matter what he said, whoever said what, we just want these innocent villagers and these innocent people, especially within the rural areas, to stop being killed in their sleep for not trying to hurt anybody and just living their lives. If there was a suggestion you would like to put out to put an end to this carnage, what would that suggestion be, Mr. Farotimi?
It would be that the Nigerian state should stop being complicit in the murder of those who should be its own citizens. Sat right there in your studio, interestingly, in the exact same studio from where you're broadcasting today. I believe that was in 2022. Commodore Lawumi informed this nation how members of Boko Haram and Islamist terrorists were sat in Buhari's regime, and how a list of such sponsors had been given to that government since 2016. I don't hear anything about any one of those being talked about today. And yet the president was pointing comically at his service chiefs and ordering them, demanding to know where the murderers were, where the terrorists were, if anybody had been arrested. Is it the same government that had not arrested anyone since 2016 that is going to be chasing anybody around 9 years later? The critical thing is that the government needs to come clean and be honest about the fact that it is complicit in the senseless genocide that is going on in Nigeria. How can it be that we have a government, and the primary duty of any government, whatever kind of government it might be, whether that is theocratic, one-party state, 10-party state, it does not matter. Whether it's even a dictatorship, the primary reason a state exists is to protect the lives and properties of its citizens. And we've almost lost our capacity to be shocked. 200 human beings were murdered. And the president went to Benue and he was talking almost as if he was prepping for a campaign rally. And the only person who appeared to retain sufficient cognition to draw attention to the gravity of the occasion was the Tortee. It was more or less like they went to dance on the graves of those they have not, some of whom may never even be identified before being buried in mass graves. So, in all honesty, let the state begin to do what it should do, protect the lives and properties, and stop being complicit. The complicity of this government, the APC, is established beyond argument, and he should just really repent and begin to protect Nigerian lives.
So what, Mr. Farotimi, when you say complicity, what do you mean?
Yeah. It's very clear. Let me just make a let me make a case for this. It was Bugaje who came out and told each and every Nigerian, there's multiple videos online, and said that in the lead up to the 2015 election, the APC imported terrorists into Nigeria. He said so, and he made it very clear. Multiple times during the Buhari years, terrorists were attacking Nigeria, particularly in Kaduna, and they made it clear that they had a deal that had not been honored. They did not say so in hiding. They'd been out in the public space. Multiple occasions, members of the Middle Belt Forum have come into the public space to speak of terrorist camp in the tri-state area between Benue, Plateau, and Nasarawa, and how members of the Nigerian security forces are well aware of these terrorist camps. I've never done anything about it. The president went to that place today, and you could hear him clearly talking as if we're dealing with a political problem. We're talking about over 200 human beings, somebody's children, somebody's husband, somebody's mother, somebody's father, human beings. We're not talking about, even if these were rats, it should be worthy of some sort of scientific curiosity to find out exactly what has happened. But we're talking about human beings, and the president is talking about committees. It's almost like it was a theater to fulfill all righteousness. The only thing is that it wasn't righteous at all. So if you're asking what the solution is, I'm saying the government needs to stop colluding. And if you still want further proof, listen to what Commodore Laumi had to say in your studio. Commodore Laumi was a spook. You don't hear those kind of people speak in the public space. And he came into your studio and he spoke without hesitation. He named names, at least as much as he could. But there was something curious that he said, if you go back and listen to that tape. He said he was confident that by 2023, when there was a change of government, we will be shocked by the revelation we will get. He presumed that the will of the people would prevail and that we would have a change of government in 2023.
Mr. Farotimi,
yes.
Whether those allegations of complicity are true or not, we hope that, that forms part of the conversations that are being held behind closed doors. Speaking of which,
that is
one of the things that was, visibly absent from the president's commentary yesterday was the capacity of the security agents to deal with the issues on ground. We cannot talk enough about that. Is there any optimism on your part that is being addressed behind closed doors? Because that speaks to the ability to respond to it, either it's in Benue or Plateau or Nasarawa State. Are you optimistic that those conversations are being held behind closed doors?
Let me be very frank with you. There is very little about our situation to make one optimistic about the government's role in the insecurity playing out in Nigeria. If there is anything the government could possibly do, it might be to get out of the way of those who are prepared to defend themselves and let there be an end to this insinuation that the only thing the government ever do is to come before the attacks, disarm the local population, and then leave them as sitting ducks. So if the government and the security agencies are incapable of defending citizens, I think it was the DSS Director General that came out the other day, and he was counseling citizens to be prepared to defend themselves. That's not a bad idea. If it's time that we Kukuma recognize the fact that the state has failed and we may for a season be allowed to defend ourselves, I'm sure that Benue people are not incapable of defending themselves. If the state that has rendered them incapable of defending themselves would allow them to do so, they would defend themselves. So in reality, any attempt to be imploring the security agents to do what they have refused to do for well over a decade. This didn't start with Bulaba. It started before him. And they haven't been able to do anything about this. Every time we talk about Benue, it's about blood, unnecessary blood being shed. Every time the Middle Belt comes into focus, that is what it's always about. So I'm not optimistic that the Nigerian security forces, in the absence of clear readiness by the government to change their operating instructions, they can't do anything. I was told that the last attack, they had a military formation, special forces, less than 600 meters away from the point where the massacre was taking place. What happened to the soldiers who will be there? They are waiting for instruction before they defend citizens. I have no confidence in the Nigerian armed forces, I'm sorry.
All right, Mr. Farotimi, let's talk about subnationals now. I literally almost empathized for the governor yesterday. The reason is quite simple, because it felt like the president was giving the governor governing 101. So I want you to speak to the issue of the quote-unquote inadequacy, lack of capacity, because when I use the word lack of capacity cautiously, because they've said they don't have any control or command in that sense, so all of the security apparatus, because everything is in Abuja. The president is the commander-in-chief, he controls everything. So sometimes I can even see a CP squaring up against a governor. We've seen it over and over. So he was talking about the issue around state police. So what can be done to make governors begin to be a bit more effective within the premise of what we have on our hand, hoping that maybe someday there will be state police if they too don't end up abusing it?
Look, we're not where we are because of a shortage of ideas. We're where we are by design. You have a situation where the Constitution says that the governor is the chief security officer of the state, but he cannot even he can't give any order to the commissioner of police in his state. And this is supposed to be in a federation. I'm currently in America. The county has its own police, well armed. The state has its own police. And then you have the FBI. But in Nigeria, supposedly another federation, everything flows through Abuja. So our problems are not by accident, they are by design. We shouldn't be talking, this state police argument has been in place. We in Afenifere have been demanding for this for decades. It's nothing new, it's been there forever. And even when the president was busy with his government 101, exactly what was the content of the rambling? Exactly what? How do you compare the madness going on in Benue to Lagos? 200 human beings just got burnt for no reason. We're just deodorizing madness in that country. That's just the truth. That's not governance 101. That is nonsense 101, if the truth be told. You got state police, yes. And I'm shocked that it is the same man who used to sing state police like Christmas carol. That is not it's not one good observer to the presidency, and now state police is something that cannot be done in 2 years. Amazing. But that could be a solution to most of these problems. But the problems were always part of the design. So I'm not going to be railing against the windmill. Is a non-issue. Nobody needs to be told that we should decentralize all these things, especially security. I'm talking about state police right now. I'm not going to be saying anything new or revolutionary. It's been there on the plate for decades. That we don't have it is further proof of the lie that we call federation. What federation? We call it a federation.
And so, Mr. Farotimi, your lack of confidence in this, the Nigerian state, or perhaps this administration, is not in doubt. But how much confidence do you have in the moves by an aggregation of opposition members to unseat this administration? And the president has, in fact, said that he has no plans to interfere with any political party registration. But we haven't heard anything from INEC as far as allegations that it is sitting on the registration of intending political parties. How do you weigh on these mix of issues?
Number one, I find it ludicrous when I see Nigerian politicians running around claiming that they are forming coalitions. I find it ludicrous when the victims of their shenanigans begin to get excited on account of such shenanigans. Let me just put it that way. In reality, it is the victims, the Nigerian people themselves, who need to be looking to rally behind common interest and common causes. That you see politicians jumping together to get into the APC or banding together trying to form another collective to battle the APC. It's just a contestation for office. It's not a contestation found on the interest of the people. The last person in the calculation of these people are the victims of Nigeria who have been commonly assailed by them. What Nigerian politician, barring one or two exceptions, has ever really given any concern for the Nigerian? So I'm not interested in the coalition of politicians. I am more interested in Nigerian victims coming together to demand an overhaul of the electoral system and a return of some hope, some confidence, of some measure of integrity in that system, not the battered system that we currently have, destroyed almost beyond recognition after what happened in 2023. So anything the politicians are doing, it does. In fact, it alarms me when I see them.
But Mr. Farotimi, would your disposition change if the presidential candidate of the Labour Party were to become a key figure in this opposition coalition, so to speak?
Let me tell you this. I would be shocked if the Nigerian ruling class, the political parties, would come to a point where they would agree that somebody like Peter Obi should be the arrowhead of that coalition. I would be shocked because, frankly speaking, it would suggest that they've come to understand that the party is over and it has to end. And that might perhaps offer them an orderly way of getting out of the mess they've contrived to place Nigeria in after the many years of the misrule of this country. But I have no such illusions. They are not a people ruled by altruism. They are almost always governed by selfish interests. Rarely ever enlightened. Enlightened selfish interest should inform such a coalition because it is obvious that the only one amongst the lot who could possibly capture the imagination of the youth is Peter Obi, but it is not likely to happen. I don't see them doing that. I don't see them doing that. That's just the truth. That's me. I don't have any confidence.
Yeah, Mr. Farotimi, I would like you to speak to the issue of INEC. Some young persons now taking it upon themselves. They are raising a campaign about fixing INEC. We all know what played out in the last election and the pronouncement of the Apex Court as far as that election is concerned. But the advocates and those at the vanguard are saying one of the ways to engender confidence and transparency is just to make electronic transmission of results as strong side by side with the Form EC8A. It looks like a tough job right now. We don't know what will happen before 2027. In fact, just yesterday or 2 days ago, the president flagged off a new INEC headquarters HQ annex. And of course, they are getting flags for all of that. If you were to propose very fundamental reform that will bring people back to the table, because the Nigerian people have to be involved in choosing their leaders. If they are not confident that the managers of that process are not efficient or are not fair, then we're just joking here. What would you propose?
Well, I voted for the first time in 1993. Incidentally, we were celebrating or mourning the tragedy that the day eventually became. As at that time, we had no computers for elections. It was just the electoral officer with their pens and paper, and we would queue. It was called option A4, open ballot. We queued. And by the end of the day, we had the result, even though those who are unhappy with the way we dared to express our sovereign right annulled that election. Now, in 2023, we were told that beavers would work. There will be real-time upload to IREV, and every one of us would be able to see how the election went. On this back of this and on the strength of this, we got people involved in the electoral system, new people registered in high numbers, and then Mahmoud did his magic. Now, the minimum anybody can expect to place on the table before you might find the kind of engagement that is meaningful in 2027 would be to ensure that there is automatic transmission of results so that we cut out all these glitches. Because in spite of these glitches, those who did what they did were the first to come out repeatedly to assure us that they will transmit these results. So it's a minimum irreducible. What Peter is doing, Aka, I am 110% behind him. I'm grateful for the like of him taking on that campaign, going around the country, trying to sensitize our people. It is the minimum irreducible. If we can't have confidence in the electoral process, we might as well just throw up our hand, especially when you have an INEC that is already refusing to register. What kind of democracy are we practicing? Even in the First Republic, we didn't have a party, we didn't have an electoral umpire that was busy registering people up and down the place, acting like, might as well open an office for them in the APC headquarters, as far as I'm concerned, though, please. So I really don't see anything wrong with that demand for electoral reform, and I really don't believe that there will be any serious electioneering process in place in 2027 in the absence of guarantees that there will be electronic transmission of the results.
Speaking of guarantees, what could have pointed to perhaps the body language that will suggest the disposition of the administration towards a support for electoral reforms before the 2027 election would have been a reference to it in the President's Democracy Day speech. But there was nothing of the sort. Should we run away with that, or we should stay with assurances of the committee meetings of the National Assembly that have been tasked with the responsibility of deliberating on the items in the proposed electoral reforms?
You see, I think it will be not only simplistic, but exceedingly foolish for anyone to expect that the APC government of Bola Ahmed Tinubu will be interested in an electoral reform that would ensure transparency in the electoral process. This is a government that is the beneficiary of an electoral heist. I say that full-chested. I say that as the person who was charged with the duty of collecting from EC8A, from HINEC in Lagos State. And I say without equivocation that Segun Agbaje, the then INEC commissioner in Lagos State, could not produce a single form EC8A. Not one could be produced because the entire result in Lagos State was a fraud. And that is the basis upon which the man sits in office, and you expect him to reform. But I expect that the Nigerian people, who are the victims of this gross abuse of powers and gross abuse of processes, have every right to demand these reforms, and they should. If that includes trooping onto the street peacefully, if I may underline, to make those demands, we should. But we should not, the power is not served a la carte. Even Bulaba said so. You grab it, you snatch it, you run with it. But it is the right of citizens to expect to be given the power to vote and decide who rules them. And we should be making that demand very clearly, without any equivocation or apologies to anybody.
Yeah, but Mr. Farotimi, your response to the question taken, but some would disagree with you that the entire election result from Lagos in 2023 were a fraud, because the fact that the president could have lost his own stronghold, a place that had been his own stronghold over the years, is testament that the results from the elections in Lagos were free and fair.
You see, I'm not too good with arguments that are devoid of evidence. What I just said to you is empirical. I was charged with the duty of receiving electoral material from INEC in Lagos State. The result we had and the result that INEC declared, they are completely at opposite ends from each other. That was one. INEC, who was meant to give us the Form EC8A, which is the form which is the basis for the demand that transmission of election results should be electronic. The form that should have been loaded onto IREF from Beavers is the EC8A. Give us Form EC8A in Lagos, which is the center where everybody were. They couldn't give us a single sheet of paper. And you're talking about substantial compliance, but that has become academic now. The important thing is the future. If we're going to be having anything called an election worthy of its name in 2027, we shouldn't be debating electronic transmission. It shouldn't be something left to the discretion of an INEC official any longer. Since the administrative law made by INEC has been discounted and rendered useless, not only by INEC, but by the judiciary, who accepted that INEC could do as it pleased, then let it become part of the law that makes it then mandatory that this should be transmitted. That's not asking for too much.
All right, Mr. Farotimi, as we wind down, just the last question. Of course, we introduced you as a rights activist and all of that, so we cannot end the conversation without the issues of fundamental human rights. Yesterday, one of the things the president said, he was telling the governor, not everybody will like you. And he said, talking to himself, they hate me like hell, but I'm president. But I would, under democracy, defend and protect my accusers and abusers. But some people have felt that the environment is hostile to dissenting voice. So what do you make of that two positions?
Let me put it this way. The difference between this Bulaba age and the age of Abacha is that in the age of Abacha, there was clarity as to the exact nature of the government that we were dealing with. In the age of Bulaba, there is that ambiguity as to whether we are in a military dictatorship or a democracy.
Just a moment. What do you mean by Bulaba? Well, our president's name is Bola Tinubu. I'm not sure what you're talking about. You say Bulaba.
Oh, I'm sorry. No, that came from that Bala Blue episode. I should have said this Tinubu times. I'm sorry, please. I'm sure that anyway, in these Tinubu times, it's very easy to forget exactly what kind of government we have in place, because I have personally, and I'm not speaking to my Kitty episode, I'm speaking to other things. I don't come to the public space to talk about what I'm dealing with sometimes, but the truth is, the level of repression of free speech, the readiness to criminalize every civic disagreement. You write something and a member of the Nigerian ruining class will come out crying that is about them, even when you're not talking to them, and then they'll use the police or the DSS to be harassing people. They may be pastors. It's always very interesting that in what should be a democracy, it is becoming increasingly dangerous to speak. I don't know exactly how much of this is directly traceable to the president or how much of this is traceable to his temperament. But unfortunately, when the fish will rot, it usually begins from the head. And there is always somebody on whose desk the buck must stop. The reality is that the Nigerian has really been more repressed than he is in this moment. So it's for the president to determine exactly how hollow his protestations are. But Nigerians are not feeling the kind of breeze of freedom that he's projecting. If anything, it's been the odious stench of dictatorship that's been in the nose.
Mr. Dele Farotimi, thank you so much. Outspoken, fearless, civil rights activist, national organizing secretary of Afenifere social political group. Mr. Farotimi, thank you, and I'm sure you can catch a good sleep now for dragging you out of your bed at this time. But we appreciate the sacrifice. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Father.
People lost their life. Over 200 souls, children, father, mothers, husband, wives lost their life in Benue State, and then all the state government could do was to arrange a colorful party for the president to come and visit. And then a question was asked, if this is actually a visit to show condolence or a visit for next campaign. Because he was asking why have there not been any arrests, why, as if the government are working. How many massacre have happened and there have been an arrest? How many herdsmen have been arrested for invading communities, for buying farmers and their family? How many have been arrested? How many have been detained? How many have been called to action? Or how many have been sanctioned or warned? You cannot bring out one person, one herdsman, that these security emergencies have arrested for buying somebody. Now they are asking why have there not been any arrests? And the people are clapping. The government are working. I believe that's what they want us to believe, that the government are working. Why have there not been any arrests? How did we get to this level? I keep asking myself that question. We're in the wrong place, we're in the wrong country, the wrong government, wrong everything. By the way, let me get your views in the comment section, guys. Let me guys on my next video. If you guys subscribe to boy again. Stay tuned, guys, on my next video.